So I'm pretty ashamed of it, but I'm Italian and I don't know how to make fresh pasta. I don't even know where to start. Oh, man. That's why I sat down with Ben, so he can explain to me how to make fresh pasta. The different ways to do it, the different ingredients, the principles behind it. But, you know, with Ben, he's not gonna just tell you how to do it. He likes to give you way more context than that.
They have a very natural symbiotic relationship, humans and wheats, right? One of those kind of love song-y type things, like love at first sight. It's pretty useful actually. It's giving us a lot of calories and we get a lot out of it. But you can't just like eat it out of hand like it's an apple. People have to bring it though back. And so when you do that, you know, you're grabbing a lot of grain, you're dropping some along the way. Ooh, all of a sudden you're actually growing wheat. And now all of a sudden there's even more wheat. So the people want to be eating even more. We can have a few more people now. All of a sudden, oh, now there's more people to gather more wheat. And then, you know, all of a sudden, boom, wheat domesticated people. It's like they're pulling the levers.
I told you, the kid loves content.
I'll take it from here, Frank. This is my show. So today what we're going to do is we're going to look at the template of how to make pasta. We're going to learn how to mix it, we're going to learn how to knead it, and then we're going to let it rest, shape it, and put it with sauces. Let's get into it. The ratio to make pasta dough is 3 parts flour to 2 parts egg, by weight. If you don't feel like using a scale, you can do it by volume, 2 eggs to 1 cup of flour, but what I do is just do it by feel. So I crack some eggs into some flour and just start mixing it until you get to the point where it gets into like a sludgy kind of a paste. At this point, you need to go in with your hands. It's still a little bit wet right now, so you need to work in a little bit of flour, but the idea is not to work in too much of it. For where we're at right now, probably need about 1/3 of this flour for it to come together into a ball. Don't overdo it. Sometimes you do though, like Frank does here. And then all you gotta do is work in some more egg.
Which is a pretty big pain in the ass.
Oh man, those poor chickens.
Especially with the support of Ben.
Look at me, I'm Italian.
If you want to avoid being humiliated, just remember that a simple rule of thumb is 1 egg and a 1/2 cup of flour per serving of dough that you're making. And here's what it looks like when it actually goes correctly.
It's gonna feel kind of dumb at first because the dough hasn't really come together yet, but as you continue to just kind of move it around and knead it with your hands, it'll begin to feel a little bit more like Play-Doh. Basically what you do is just fold it, push it down with your palm, turn it, and do it again. You do this for like 5-10 minutes, you know, you can be your own boss here, you can tell when you're done. But
No, Ben, let's be a little more specific than that. You're looking for it to be uniform and smooth, and at that point you can let it rest for 20 minutes, throw it in a Ziploc bag or wrap it in saran wrap.
It's like 3 archetypes. Okay, these archetypes? Is archetypes too weird?
Yeah.
There's 3 pasta dough archetypes.
Doo-doo-doo. Couch in the kitchen.
The most standard one is going to be just regular flour and eggs. So it's going to be your 2 parts egg to 3 part all-purpose flour.
This is the one we just made.
So if that's your standard, there's then a weak version of it and a strong version of it. So the weak version of the dough is the egg yolk dough. For this, you'd be using type O flour, a soft wheat flour, as well as egg yolks instead of the whole eggs. Then there's the hard one. For this, you'd be using a high protein flour like semolina, and then you'd be replacing the eggs with just water.
So what's the deal? What's the difference between them?
well, Frank, the deal is that with weak pasta doughs, you can make pasta that's very silky and tender. And so to best showcase this, we're going to make something long and wide, parpadelli. Now, strong doughs, on the other hand, are much tougher. They get kind of stuck in your tooth as you bite down into them. So for that reason, we're going to make something that's smaller, stubbier, and orecchiette. And for a jaboy, boring, regular dough, we're going to make TROFIE because they look dope.
tried to learn how to make this watching this jaboy.
I'm Luca D'Onofrio.
He makes this shit look so much easier than it actually is. So let's try to figure out what the hell he's actually doing. Basically, if you watch Luca, he's got the bench scraper at about a 45-degree angle, and then you pull it straight down. After a decent amount of self-loathing, you start to get it. So these are the 3 types of doughs we can create, and these are the ingredients we can use to create them. But the question is, what's allowing something to be a weak or a strong dough? And the answer is gluten.
Gluten's a scary term to a lot of people. You know, jury's still out. I'm not saying that, you know, it's necessarily healthy or anything like that, but very useful culinarily, because that's what allows flour to be made into dough. If you were to wash away all the starch, you would see that there's a ball of protein that exists underneath it, right? A matrix of interconnected, like a little muscle. So it's not like flour has gluten already. Flour has proteins in them, 2 different proteins that when they're combined together create a little matrixy substructure that we call gluten.
Different flours have different amounts of protein. The more protein you have, the more gluten you can create. The more gluten you can create, the stronger the dough. So to make a weaker dough, use a low protein flour. To make a stronger dough, use a high protein flour.
When the flour is dry, there's no gluten involved. When you mix it with water,
Oh, jeez.
this is why you do the bowl. Get the book. Creates this network that then is gluten.
Because you have to add water to form gluten, if you use fat, you actually prevent gluten from forming. And that's because when you add fat, it coats the flour, which prevents water from reaching the flour and creating gluten. So to make a weaker dough, add more fat. And if you want to make a stronger dough, don't use any fat at all and just use water. And if you're a vegan, you don't have to use eggs. You can use olive oil and water to get a similar effect. Of the shapes we made, this was the easiest. To start this one off, you're going to want to put some flour on the table and then just start rolling it out with a rolling pin. And you want to get the thinness to where you can basically see through it. And then once you have it rolled out, you're going to want to put some more flour down on top of it. And then you're going to roll it up. Basically just use a knife and cut it into the desired thickness that you want. Figure about 1 inch, and then there you go. You have your pappardelle. So this was our favorite shape to make. It also has a nice chewy texture and holds sauce really well. You're going to roll out a nice log of dough, and then you're gonna cut off a little piece and use a butter knife. And what you wanna do is just scrape the piece across the table. Then you take that piece and push it inside out with your thumb, which we don't have footage of, but you could use your imagination. Sauce. Sizz.
And in terms of sauces, just like the light and heavy thing?
Okay.
It can be very short and sweet. It doesn't have to be.
It shouldn't be, though.
Oh, Jesus.
Because, yeah. The Italians have a lot of funny rules, you know? It's like, sometimes there's rules like what the French do, where there's like some kind of technique and chemistry involved with their rules. And there's other types of rules that are more just tradition. And we do it because that's the way we've always been doing it.
Now, Ben went on this rant for about 10 minutes, but the basic premise is that the sauce and the shape should complement each other. For instance, with the TROFIE, we chose a pesto because it'll get stuck in the twists. For the ORECCIETTE, we chose a mushroom ragu because the little pieces get stuck in the little bowls. TROFIE al pesto. Pappardelle al pomodoro.
when the moon hits your eye.
Orecchiette a sugo de funghi.
It's over. We're done. We're tired. There's nothing left. Get out of here.